Welcome to Combos from the Couch by LifeStance Health, where leading mental health professionals help guide you on your journey to a healthier, more fulfilling life. Hey everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our discussion on the importance of mental health and Olympic athletes. I'm Nicolette Leanza, and joining me are Olympic sprinter Kendall Ellis and Olympic pentathlete Samantha Schultz. And they'll share what competing at the Olympic level is really like, the mental and emotional challenges athletes face behind the scenes, and what we can do differently to truly support mental health and well-being in athletes. So welcome, Kendall and Sammy. Great to have you both on.
Thanks so much for having us here.
Thank you. So to start, can both of you share a bit about your personal journey? What inspired your path to the Olympics? Kendall, do you mind getting us started?
Sure. I have been running track since I was 7 years old, and I didn't grow up with these Olympic dreams or even professional dreams. I was just having fun running and going to practice with my friends. And I don't think things really started to click until high school when I realized I can get a college scholarship for this. And then in college, I made my first senior championship world team as a junior in college. And that's when it clicked like, oh, I can run professionally. And so from there, after each like level of success, it was realizing I can take this to the Olympics and I can become an Olympic athlete.
Thank you. And Sammy?
I would say, kind of a similar thing. I'd always loved watching the Olympics when I was younger and had kind of aspired to be an Olympian, but I wasn't by any means like some all-star athlete when I was younger, but I did a lot of different events and a lot of different sports. And for those people that are listening in, pentathlon consists of fencing, swimming, horseback riding, running, and shooting. And so I had no idea about the sport when I was younger. And it wasn't really till I was 18. I was in high school. I was running cross country and track. I was swimming. I was doing ski team. I grew up hunting and riding horses. I had really never fenced. And so the sport kind of fell into my lap and showed up as an opportunity for me once I finished high school. And it really wasn't a collegiate opportunity, but I really enjoyed being able to continue doing multiple sports because that's kind of the way I grew up, and I wasn't ever really super high level in one versus the other, so kind of being a multi-sport athlete, doing pentathlon was a really, really great fit, and I did my first training camp with the national team at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs and kinda got my foot in the door and just kinda kept after it, and year after year, kinda kept working up to it, but I didn't really think my Olympic dream was gonna happen, and then it was, like, later on, it's like, "Oh, maybe this is a possibility," and so I'm really glad that kind of that window for at least my sport, and I think a lot of other sports too, it is a little bit later, so it's not like you have to start when you're super young.
Got you. Thank you. So we know elite athletes often face intense pressure. What makes it especially difficult to ask for help or speak openly about mental health at this level? Kendall?
I think the stigma that still surrounds mental health and asking for help, it being seen as a sort of weakness or a deficit and something like you should keep quiet and not talk about. I have struggled with anxiety since I started running at 7 years old. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't know what it was at that age. But as I got older and learned about anxiety, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I have and what I've been dealing with for a majority of my career. And so I've been talking about it from very, very early on. And there were many people who said I shouldn't or that to try to fight it or keep it to myself. And so I think now in 2026, we have entered a space that we are more open to mental health and conversations and trying to break down the stigma. But I think it's still not as respected and seen as a quote unquote real issue the way a physical, let's say, disability might be seen. And so I think that that still makes it a bit difficult, just the way, the lens that people look at mental health.
No, I agree. I agree. Sammy?
I agree 100%. It's that fear of kind of being seen as weak or and maybe not by your teammates, but even and like building that trust with your coach too. I think that's sometimes a lot of times we might have multiple coaches, or you are in a position where you don't really get to choose your coaches. It's just the national team coaches. So you're trying to make a really, at least I felt as an athlete, I always wanted to impress them and like do the best I could. So I kind of shoved down my emotions and
Mm,
put that mental health aside and just like challenge myself physically. And I think that a lot of athletes, they want to impress, like we're driven. And so it's kind of just, yeah, let's, I don't want that weakness. I don't want that to be
mm,
seen by maybe my teammates or my coach. I want to be perceived as strong, but it's really, really hard. Eventually that does get to you and holding all that in. So I think just being able to have like some of that relationship with a coach can help. But I know for me, like I didn't really, I had European coaches for a lot of stuff. And
mm.
so that language barrier was tough, or a lot of them were male. And so you don't really feel like you can kind of open up on a lot of stuff. And so I am glad that there is a lot more resources and things that mental health is being talked about more, because I think the more that gets talked about, coaches hear that, and then coaches can kind of filter that into athletes. But I definitely, yeah, it's a struggle for sure to be vulnerable,
Right.
especially as an athlete. You don't really want to come off as vulnerable. You want to be like, I'm strong, I'm confident. So it's a whole different side of you that I think you have to tap into.
Right. Oh, definitely. That vulnerability too, so tough. That perception that you're going to be seen as weak, right? And
Yeah.
trying to balance that, really tough.
Yeah, I
So,
think piggybacking
yeah.
off what Sammy said, that relationship with your coach and having that, being able to have that vulnerability. I have been with the same coach for the last 10 years now,
Oh,
and
wow.
he knows about my anxiety. We talked about it, but it wasn't until maybe the last 3 years where we had like an in-depth conversation where I was like, I have anxiety, but like, this is how I'm feeling. These are the symptoms that come along with it. And this is what I'm struggling with when I get to the line. And he had no idea the severity of
Wow.
how anxiety can manifest itself physically and what it really looks like. And so, like Sandy said, having those conversations and being able to talk about it more and more is bringing awareness to everyone, athlete and coaches themselves.
Right. Oh, definitely. It sounds like Kendall, and probably you as well at times, Sammy, is just really, you probably got pretty good at just camouflaging it or masking it, pretending like you weren't, even though under inside it was just really bubbling over. Is that why maybe your coach didn't realize, Kendall, that you were so nervous
Yeah,
initially?
yeah. I think
Yeah.
you get good at kind of just figuring it out, trying to mask it and trying to appear like Sandy said, the strong athlete that people see athletes as.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that that's huge too, that even though you had a coach that you had for so long, it does take kind of that moment to break through and communicate how you're feeling. And that can be really hard, even if you have that relationship with someone. So I think that's huge too, of being able to have that relationship or just like show that vulnerability and feel like that safe space, and a coach too that has more knowledge and awareness of that can be really helpful.
Definitely. Which again, this is why we're having these conversations so coaches and others that are close to the athletes can really be more open to allowing athletes to be vulnerable, right? So looking back, what guidance would you give your younger self about navigating the mental and emotional demands of pursuing the Olympic dream? Kendall?
I think I would have told my younger self to see a therapist so much earlier than
Yeah.
I did. Like I said, I've been struggling with anxiety since I started running at 7 years old. But at that age, you just know that you feel nervous, you have butterflies in your
Mhm.
tummy. But I kind of knew I was like, this is more extreme than what the other kids are telling me they're feeling. And so for a very long time, I try to pretend nothing was wrong and that I was fine. I was still winning competitions. I was still performing really well. And so I think everyone surrounding me was kind of like, well, she's still succeeding. And so like it's okay. And so I didn't see a sports therapist until my senior year of high school. And I really, really wish I could go back and tell my younger self to get in therapy so much earlier to start building the habits and coping mechanisms for this anxiety because it wasn't going away. It was something I'm going to have to manage and probably likely manage for the rest of my career. But I wish I told my younger self it is okay to seek out help. It's not a weakness. It's an arsenal, something in your toolbox. And so
Mhm.
I wish I had got therapy much earlier.
What finally led you to it your senior year then? What was it?
It was my coach and my parents. At
Yeah.
a certain point, I was like 7-time state champion at that point. And so I had a lot of success under my belt, but there was one competition I'd go to in the summer, New Balance Nationals. And I would always be ranked in like top 5, top 6. Like it was expected that I would perform well, and I never did. I crumbled every single time, and I would run so much slower than I had ran like 2 weeks before. And so my
Okay.
parents and coaches, just out of an abundance of like love and care for me, were like, "We hate seeing you suffer like this. You are so talented. You are so great at what you do. We don't want it to be a miserable experience for you." And so it was really a sort of intervention where we were at the house. They were like, "We love you. This is what we want for you. Would you be willing to see a therapist?" And very, very resistant at first, of
Yeah.
course, but very grateful of that they did that for me.
Thank you. Sammy?
I also agree. That would be something that I wish I would have done when I had first started competing and training for pentathlon. The other thing that I wish I would have comparison is the thief of joy. And that
Mhm.
has always been something I wish I would. I that comparison of me comparing myself to other athletes that have been doing this for years, or the way that they seem to handle things on the surface, or that I, for some reason, had like fencing was my weakness. It was the last sport I learned at 18, which is kind of
Okay.
an old age to learn a new sport. And so I felt like that was always a weakness. And I felt like it was always something holding me back. And I would compare myself to people who had been doing it for years longer than me. And that really beat me up. And I think that got in my head. And so when I did start to seek out working with a sports psychologist, I think that helped, but I also think that that's not enough. I think a therapist who can really dive into like your personal, like who you are as a person, I think that was where I wish I would have started with seeing a therapist sooner, because
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
it's like I was good at routines and regimens and doing this and doing that, which is a lot of that sports psychology of like getting those habits when you're warming up, or like kind of getting your head in the right place. But anytime I'd start to lose in fencing, it was like that those self-deprecating thoughts. It was like that is where kind of breaking through some of those
Yeah.
things with the therapist really helped
Right.
me. So I think like there's a difference in some of that,
Mhm.
and being able to have someone who's a little bit more sport focused. And I do think there's providers that can do both, but I think for
Mhm.
me, being able to see someone kind of in therapy to kind of focus on that of like, I think you're just like doing this, and let's try this, of more things like outside of sport for me to work on that translated in itself. And that's something that I do wish, because I think I reached out to my parents for so much help and support, which I'm so grateful for. But I think a therapist and having someone that's kind of on the outside, like Kendall said, of just
Mhm.
someone to be able to help and support you kind of from a different perspective is, I mean, I just encourage a lot of people, no matter how old you are, it's not weakness, it's not anything you're doing wrong, it's honestly just helping
Right.
you set you up more for success in the long run. Because you are gonna go through, as an athlete, you are gonna go through all these ups and downs, and being able to, like, learn how to navigate that and navigate your
Mhm.
emotions, just all kinds of different things, it gives you a lot of useful tools that you can start to practice sooner.
Right, right. And speaking of tools, are there specific routines or practices or habits that have become essential in helping you both protect and strengthen your own mental health and emotional well-being? Kendall?
I think so. I am a big fan of visualization. And so even doing it starting in the morning before I go to practice, and then setting up practice of this is what it's going to feel like at the meet. And that's the one that I really, really enjoyed. I've gotten back into meditation a bit. That was when I struggled with, definitely when I was younger. But now that I'm a little older and I've had more practice with it, it's a tool that I've come to really appreciate.
Very important tool. It's a good one for sure. Sammy?
I found that yoga was really helpful for me to slow down and connect my body and my breath. That was something that was really helpful for me. Meditation was very hard, and I kind of felt like I never really could sit still. So I found yoga, and that was really helpful, because I think the recovery aspect of it too helped me and my body, of just giving me something where
Mhm.
I could still move my body, but I was a little bit more in tune to things and my breath and how I moved. And that was kind of a transformation for me. And then from that, learning how to sit still, of just
Mm.
being in that and try to visualize. Writing and journaling was a big help for me, of just being able to kind of get those thoughts in my head out on paper. so that they weren't kind of spiraling in my head because a lot of times I would overthink things. So being able to kind of have that place where if I needed to just write things down, whether it was good or bad, kind of having that space where it can kind of just brain dump and get that out. That was something that was helpful for me.
Good. Thank you. Great, both of you guys, great tips on how you navigate your own mental health. Thank you. So I know we talked about you both with your younger selves, but if we're looking at for young athletes chasing big goals, how do you recommend balancing ambition with the need to care for their long-term mental health? How about we start with
Yeah.
Sammy? We're gonna switch it up. Sammy?
So that balance is hard. I will say, I think there is a big push when you are younger to specialize and go all in, and there can be a lot of pressure. And so I think being able to have fun with what you're doing, enjoy it. And I mean, yes, you want to take it seriously, but also still being able to find that joy, because if you're really not loving it and like,
Mm,
I think also like kind of knowing your why, like what's my why? What are my goals? Being able to kind of set up those goals so that you're not comparing yourself to the person next to you. You're like, okay, yeah, I may not be as fast as them, but I'm still progressing and getting better. And so kind of setting those goals and being a little bit more personalized, I think can help make it more exciting. Cause you're like, oh, I am like hitting this next time that I wanted to get. And if you're not, kind of going back and being able to go back to the drawing board and like kind of being okay with failure. There is going to be
mm.
like that
That's
up
a
and
hard
down. Like,
one too,
yes,
being okay with failure. Yeah.
it's so hard. I mean, I
Mhm.
missed the Olympic team in 2016. I technically qualified, but they only took 2 athletes, and I was ranked number 3, literally right behind my teammate. And it was
Oh,
so I was crumbled and like crushed. Like my whole life was training. I was in school part-time, but that balance is so hard because you pour so much time and dedication into something you care so much, but you also are, and I think that's kind of where remembering you are someone else outside of that sport. It's like, yes, I'm a pentathlete, but I'm also a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a
mhm.
friend, I'm all these other things. And so being able to take that bigger picture and look and see that I am not just an athlete. So, like, if I don't do well at this one competition, my entire world isn't over. It might seem like it for
Right,
maybe a little bit, and it's like take
right.
that time to, be sad about it and then like kind of reset and find your ground again. And I think for younger athletes, like that can be really hard when you put a lot of pressure on you. So just remembering that there's so many different aspects of who you are as a person, and I think that that helps make you a better athlete.
Great. Kendall?
Yeah, exactly what Sydney just said. I will always be a huge proponent of being more than an athlete. You are so much more than your sport, you're more than your results. And how you do in a competition doesn't dictate your value or your worth. And I understand that's really, really difficult as a young athlete. And that took me years to figure out and like stand in
Mhm,
that and be okay with it. And so much easier said than done. But I think when you have passions outside of your sport, other things that you're
mhm,
interested in, other things that make you happy, it's so much easier to not see your sport as the end all be all. And so I think just
mhm.
having those reminders, having friendships outside of your sport, spending time with your
Yeah.
family, hobbies and interests. I always say I compete my best when I feel like my best whole self. And so it's when I'm happy off the track, when I have things to look forward to, meetups and hangouts with friends that I'm looking forward to after my
Important.
competition. And so
Mhm.
things like that, that make sure you cater to the entire being and the entire person and not just the athlete will
That's
make
good.
your sport way more enjoyable and then also just your life outside of it a lot more enjoyable.
Oh, great advice there. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, in your view, what more could the International Olympic Committee or other organizations do to better support athletes' mental health before, during, and after competition? Yes, we'll jump back to Kendall. Go ahead. What do you think, Kendall?
I can say I think the Olympic Committee does a good job in providing resources, providing financial help in finding a therapist and that sort of thing,
Oh,
which has been
nice.
really,
Oh,
really,
good.
yeah, and
Yeah,
reimbursement. So that's been really appreciated. And that's been huge to show that you are not only saying you care about mental health, but putting the finances and the
that's
backing
great.
support behind it. I think it's It's hard. I think it's really difficult I think one of the difficult parts of mental health, especially now in this day and age, is like social media. And that is
Yeah,
such a difficult area to regulate and try to, keep the hate comments at a minimum and keep the bullying to a
right.
minimum. And so I think, organizations, if they can figure out a way to better that, whether it's, I know we all want engagement and feedback, but whether it's shutting off the comments when you see it getting to a certain
Yeah,
point, or filtering certain things and making sure that it is not even allowed to be typed in a comment section, things like that. I think we can get a better rein and a better grip on protecting our young athletes,
yeah.
especially from what the masses have to say.
Right, right. Oh, I agree. Sammy?
And I will say, I mean, I started 2010 was kind of when I came into my sport, and mental health and therapy and wasn't really talked about, and it wasn't really something that I felt was provided to me as an athlete, and that has changed. I will say that that is something that I have seen get better with the
Good.
Olympic Committee over the years, and I am so grateful for that. I think it took a lot of really drastic things, unfortunately, from athletes. And I mean, thankfully, there's a lot of big names that have spoke out about things, which I think that has kind of spurred it to grow and to have it more accessible. But it is hard because I think even as you are an upcoming athlete, you may not be given those opportunities or the ability to have stuff like that covered. And so I hope that that can be expanded to even not just elite athletes who are at the elite level, but like athletes that are up and coming, that are
Yeah.
coming up into the sport too, because I really do think that that's the next generation. Like that is what's
Mhm.
going to make that sport continue on once people retire. And I just think that that's really important too, is to like make that available for so many people, because and it should be a part of your training. Like that, and that's what I struggled with too, is I'm like, oh, the mental stuff, like I'll worry about that later. I'll make time for all the training and the practices. But it's like I needed kind of more of that encouragement to make that a practice in my weekly routine and trying to do that. And I think that kind of falls more on the coaches side of things, but I think the Olympic Committee and that they can try to push that a little bit more, I think, with some coaches. And I know that's so much for them to try to have to manage with all the different sports and all the different athletes, but I really have seen a really big improvement in their support with that and their encouragement with that, at least just kind of in the time that I was under the national team and whatnot.
True, good. So it sounds like it's definitely gotten better. And though probably still some room to continue to get better too. That's
And
fair
I
to
mean,
say.
as with anything, it's like we're learning, we're growing. And I think too, like, yeah, like Kendall said with social media, that can be really challenging. And it's like the comments that get made sometimes about people's bodies and this and that. And it's like, I
Yeah.
think we need to work too on like commentators and on that side of things, of making sure that people are saying comments that aren't hateful, or just like I think things like that, because that is really difficult as an athlete when you're
Mhm.
on this stage and everyone can see you. You're so critical of yourself, and then hearing
Yeah.
that sometimes from other people, that makes it really hard and can lead to more things. So I think it's just like
Mhm.
people having more awareness of different things, because I think there is a lot of people struggling with body image stuff
Yeah.
and eating disorders, and on top of performance stuff. Like there's a plethora of things that fall under mental health, as I'm sure you know. And so I think just having people having more awareness and kindness about that would be wonderful.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Agree. So jumping back to looking at identity and who you both are as athletes and otherwise, many athletes talk about the identity shift that happens after an Olympic career. How have you navigated major transitions, injury, retirement, changes in career in general? So I guess jumping to Kendall, Kendall, you continue to train and things like that. So
Mhm.
I guess how would you navigate this question?
Yeah, I think I did have like my first major injury last season. And so I only got to compete once and I sat out for the rest of the year. And that was such a new thing for me, something that I hadn't experienced before. I've had little nicks and whatnot there, but this was the first thing that had me actually sit out. And so it's amazing how quickly you were forgotten, to be quite
Oh,
honest.
man.
It's
Okay.
very, very easy to be forgotten. I had won Olympic trials the year before, and then I sat out the 2025 season, and I was getting so many messages of like, "Where have you been? We haven't seen you on the world stage in forever. And like, do you still run?" It was like, whoa, I've been out for maybe 6 months, and you are gone out of people's mind. And so
Wow.
I think
Wow.
that was just such a reminder that again, like you are more than your sport and you have to have other interests, you have to have other passions and things that you care about because you won't be an athlete forever. And so I think when it does come, I think about retirement all the time and what a transition that'll be for me. And, no matter how much you try to prepare for it mentally, physically, financially, whatever, I know it'll be a shift. And I know there will be like a difficult period of adjusting to that because I've been an athlete my entire life. But I think leaning heavily on support system, the people who love me outside of my sport, who know me outside of my sport, who know me as just Kendall and not Kendall an Olympian or Kendall professional athlete. And, finding new things that I'm interested in and passions I have and things I like to do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sammy?
And yeah, I'm kind of on that. I'm retired from sport, or at least, I mean, I still am active, but definitely from full-time training and competing. And I will say that that was very hard. That was a big transition in my life. And even though I felt like I had multiple identities, I wanted to hang on to it because it was something that like I had done my whole life. It was so familiar. I loved it. I enjoyed it. But I also knew that like my body, this was about a year or two after the Tokyo Olympics, my body was just broken. It couldn't keep going with that. I did want to have a family and my health was kind of going downhill. So that was something that I kind of had to make the decision just for longevity and having that support system outside of me, my husband, my parents, my family, that really helped me kind of make that decision because I don't think I would have been able to move through that the way I did if it wasn't for them. Because it was. I was like, I feel like I want to do more. And as an athlete, if you're getting to that Olympic level, you're probably going to want to achieve more and more and more. It's going to be hard to stop that, but there comes a point I think when at least for me, it was starting to be more stressful. I mean, training through COVID, all this stuff, my sport, it's a very small sport, so just the amount of funding and awareness, it was just a really big strain on me. So I think that on top of the health issues, but even then, it didn't make it easy. It was a big shift of me shifting that mindset, changing a career when I
Mhm.
was in my 30s, finding something new that I was really passionate about, even though I had gone to school, even though I had a degree. So it's like, I think all those things to set you up for success do help and having those different identities. I mean, now I'm a new mom. I'm shifting, even now, I'm figuring out a whole new life and a whole new thing and still taking care of myself and what that looks like. So you're always going to be going through all these different changes and
Mhm.
shifts in your life as you get older. You can't train the same way you could when you were younger and injuries and things like that. So I think all those different things that you go through as an athlete, the more you can get help and assistance and have that support team with you, it's just going to continue to help you because all those tools are going to stay in your toolbox. And if you can continue to practice it, you'll be able to tap into that. And that is the thing. It's so much easier said than done. I mean, I still think back and I'm like, oh, I kind of miss competing. I wish I could go back. But then at the same time, it's like there is so much more to my life than just being an athlete. That was a part of my life. And I'm still an athlete, just maybe not
Mhm.
to that level I was. And so I think a lot of that is just being able to ride those waves and utilize the tools from therapy and being able to get that help that you can to be able to help navigate through that. Cause I think it's like if you're the one thing that's constant is change. And
Yeah,
we're always going to be going through that.
definitely. I appreciate both of your vulnerability, also appreciating your both of your promotion of therapy. I really do appreciate that. As a therapist myself, and I have counseled some elite athletes, and it is a different type of therapy approach. I'm not a sports therapist, but I am a therapist. So I am looking at a way a person's thoughts are affecting their behavior and how they navigate life, and among other things, and how maybe their childhood, things like that. So it is a different type of therapy. So I do appreciate you guys promoting that. And Sammy, you mentioned like having, maybe a sports psychologist or a sports therapist and then a regular therapist as well. So I think there's definitely both could be very complementary to one another. So appreciate you both. Any other, as we start to wind down, any other insights either of you guys would like to share? Parting words of advice? Putting you both on the spot. Kendall, anything?
I just really want to reiterate, what we said about seeking support and help for your mental health is not weak by any means. It's
Mhm.
not. And I also want to emphasize that when there is a physical injury, that gets a lot of attention and care. There's a
Mhm.
rehab and there's a plan for it. And the same can be said for our minds. It is the two go hand
Yep.
in hand. One is not more valuable and important than the other. And I know that's not how it's made to seem in the sports world, but taking care of your body and taking care of your mind are both fundamentally important.
Mental health is just as important as physical health, right? Definitely. Thank you.
And and I
Sammy?
do I do think you have to prioritize it because it is hard as an athlete, you're used to kind of physically pushing yourself, and that mentally does push you as well, but it's different in a sense of working with therapy and sometimes like diving deeper into who you are and kind of breaking through that and being vulnerable. It's really uncomfortable, but we're used to being uncomfortable, and that's something I had to remember is like I'm used to being uncomfortable when I'm out for runs, when I'm swimming, or when I'm doing my training. I can put myself in these uncomfortable situations outside of sport or outside of training. And so kind of being able to relate that of like, I can do this. I'm used to discomfort. I just need to kind of shift my mindset and work
Mhm.
on those different perspectives and being able to know that you are this bigger person. And so I hope this encourages people. It's been really, I think, in like I've seen a lot of change in myself, and it's hard to say that because you're like when you look back, but I'm like this person who was 18 coming into a sport and just trying to please everyone and do this and do that. And it's like now being able to set boundaries, communicate, ask questions, not be afraid to open up about things. That's a huge shift. And I wish I would have had that sooner, but also we go through what we go through and that helps us just to grow. And so I just hope it encourages others to maybe start younger and know that even if you're not young, you can start whenever. It's not
Yep.
too late.
100%. Great. Oh my gosh. Thank you both. Thank you, Kendall. Thank you, Sammy, for everything you shared, your vulnerability in our conversation today. And I wish you both the best in all you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'd also like to thank the team behind the podcast, Jason Clayton and Juliana Whitten. Thank you for listening to Converse from the Couch. Take care, everyone.